I always figured I'd end up dying with a half-eaten sandwich in one hand and a remote in the other. Maybe slouched in the recliner I spent too much on TV, muttering some late-night infomercial while Elizabeth slept in the next room, probably annoyed that I left a light on. That's how I thought it'd end. Not with me staring at her from across a dinner table, wondering if I ever really knew the woman chewing her grilled chicken like she was alone. Elizabeth always loved routine. Same groceries every Sunday, same good morning kiss that stopped meaning anything around year 4, and the same expression whenever I asked her if she was okay. That tight-lipped half-smile that meant, let's not. You'd think after 11 years of marriage, I'd be used to it. But lately, it all felt a little off. Like we were acting out a sitcom where the audience stopped laughing. To be clear, I wasn't unhappy, just suspiciously content. Like a guy who shows up at the wrong house for Thanksgiving and doesn't realize it until dessert. Everything looked right, but none of it felt like mine anymore. We met in college. She was pre-med, sharp as glass. I was business, and mostly just there to figure out how to coast with the least effort possible. She liked that I didn't try to impress her. I liked that she had a 5-year plan, and I could barely commit to a pizza topping. Somehow it worked. Marriage came fast. House, dog, dinner parties where everyone pretended to enjoy each other's risotto, the whole American starter pack. But then little things started shifting. She began leaving early for morning walks, even though she's the kind of person who considers yoga a violent act. Her gym membership got upgraded to some boutique studio across town, and I started seeing less and less of the woman I used to joke around with. More silence at breakfast, more sighs at night, a lot more locked doors in a house that never used to need them. Still, I told myself not to be that guy. You know the one, paranoid, needy, flipping out because his wife changed her hair part. So I played the role of the good husband. I asked how her day was and didn't press when she answered with, fine. I brought home wine she used to like and ignored that she barely touched it. I cleaned the gutters. I even took the dog to the vet without being asked. A+ material, if I do say so. But here's the thing. When you play the good husband long enough, you start noticing who's not acting. And Elizabeth? She wasn't even phoning it in anymore. No more unsolicited touches. No casual glances. Just routine stacked on top of each other like cardboard, flat, dry, and ready to fall over. One Thursday night, I was in the garage digging through our old storage bins. I wasn't looking for anything in particular. I just wanted to remind myself what life used to look like before everything got so polite. I found the box with our wedding programs, some photo albums, and one of those dumb honeymoon souvenirs, a shell with our names painted on it. We'd gone to Maine. I remember we got sunburned in the shade. I took the box inside, sat on the floor like some middle-aged cliché, and flipped through the past. Then I noticed it, the folder. A manila folder that didn't belong with the rest. It had receipts, notes, printouts of places I'd never been, spa visits, 2 movie tickets to a documentary I knew I'd never agree to watch. And both stubs were still there, which meant she went with someone else. Not a girlfriend. She hated going to the movies with girlfriends. They talked too much, she always said. Now, I could have jumped to conclusions, but I didn't. I filed it away, like a decent accountant of my own suspicions. I wasn't going to burn the house down over a spa day. Maybe it was nothing. But that night, I started paying attention. And let me tell you something. When you actually listen to your wife, really listen, and she doesn't realize you are, you learn more than you'd like. You start to hear how empty her, I love you, have become. You catch the way she hesitates before saying where she's been. You notice her glancing at her watch during dinner like she's waiting for it to be over. Or for someone else to text. I played it cool. I didn't confront. I didn't accuse. I did what any mildly self-aware suburban husband with too much time and not enough pride would do. I took notes. Literally. I kept a little notepad in my nightstand. Dates. Times. Places she said she was. And slowly, a pattern started forming. Every other Tuesday. Always after work. Always the same excuse. Oh, just drinks with Molly. Funny thing is, Molly moved to Austin last fall. Still, I said nothing. Just watched. Took mental snapshots. I wasn't looking to catch her in the act. I just wanted to know the truth. Not so I could yell or cry or make some dramatic exit. I just needed to know what I was dealing with. A broken marriage? Or a ghost of one? One night, she came home humming. She never hums. I was in bed pretending to be asleep. She crept in, took a shower, climbed in beside me smelling like a different soap, not ours, and whispered, I love you. That was the moment. The switch flipped. Not because it hurt, though it did, but because I realized she wasn't just pulling away, she'd already left. The woman beside me wasn't my wife. She was someone else's already. And still, I didn't say a word. Because the good husband waits. But he doesn't wait forever. The thing about lies is, they're usually designed for speed, not longevity. People lie to get out of a room, not to live in it. And Elizabeth had built herself a whole second life out of matchsticks. All I had to do was wait for the wind. I didn't storm her office or hire a private eye in a trench coat. We've seen that movie. I wasn't interested in playing the fool who finds a motel receipt under the bed and goes fetal in the bathroom. I was after the kind of truth you can't deny. The kind that walks into the room, sits next to you, and orders a drink without asking. So I watched. I took my time. And eventually, she handed it to me. It started with the charger. We'd both been using the same laptop charger for years. Mine finally quit, and I asked if I could borrow hers. She shrugged, distracted, scrolling something on her phone. Yeah, it's in the study, she said, barely glancing up. So I walked into the study, bent down to unplug it from the wall, and something caught my eye, her old iPad, half covered by a stack of magazines. The thing had been dead for months. She said it stopped holding a charge. But here it was, plugged in, lit up, alive. It was the same iPad I gave her on our 7th anniversary. I remember because I had it engraved on the back with a dumb quote from the sitcom we used to love. Before everything became careful, I didn't go through it. Not at first. I just stared at it for a long minute like it was some kind of relic. Then I picked it up and tapped the screen. No passcode. Now, I know what you're thinking. Here comes the part where I scroll through steamy messages or secret profiles. Except there was none of that. Nothing obvious. No saved photos, no apps out of place. Just an ordinary home screen, clean and dull as a hotel TV. But then I opened Safari. And there it was, her tabs. Dozens of them. Articles. Forums. But one stood out, a shared Google Calendar. I don't know if she forgot it was linked to the iPad or assumed I'd never think to look. But there it was, color-coded entries in a calendar I'd never seen before, tied to a Gmail account that wasn't hers. Or, I should say, not her main one. Every other Tuesday, blocked off. Meet at 6 p.m. M. Sundays at 11 a.m. Run? Coffee. M. Random Fridays. Planning weekend. M. M wasn't Molly. Molly was in Texas. And unless she'd acquired teleportation powers, she sure as hell wasn't grabbing lattes in Midtown. I stared at that calendar like it was a crime scene. Because it was. The digital kind. And the worst part? The entries weren't even trying to hide. They were boring. Ordinary. Like two people who'd been seeing each other long enough to stop pretending it was new. I didn't click around too much. I didn't want to tip anything off. Just noted the account handle, the recurring times, and one particular entry that made my jaw tighten. December 9th, D final. It was 2 weeks away. Final what? Now, I could have made a fake account and tried to hack into it. I could have followed her. But I already had enough to know this wasn't a blip. This was a double life. She'd moved on emotionally, physically, mentally, probably spiritually. Hell, she might have even signed them up for a couples pottery class. So instead, I focused on finding out who M was. If Elizabeth wasn't going to give me a confession, I'd at least give myself the dignity of facts. And this is where things got clever. You see, one of the entries was oddly specific. City Archives, 3 p.m. M. No address, no full name. Just that. And it had been logged 3 weeks earlier. Elizabeth hadn't mentioned anything about City Archives, not even in her vague, "I'm busy today" talk. But it was a public building, open to the public. So I called in sick and went there the next week at the exact same time, just to test the pattern. I figured if it was a fluke, I'd waste an hour. If not, I'd see her. And I did. She walked in wearing the scarf I gave her last Christmas. Meticulous as ever. She walked past me without even looking. Sat in a corner booth with a man I'd never seen before. Mid-40s, clean-shaven, business casual with the kind of self-satisfied posture that comes from knowing someone chose you over their husband. He handed her a folder. She smiled and touched his hand. I didn't make a scene. I didn't cry. I walked out. And now I knew. But here's the twist. You'd think I'd confront her that night, right? Wrong. I waited. Because the calendar had another golden nugget. 1 week from that day. Lawyer call. M on Zoom. Zoom. Which meant her laptop. And Elizabeth? She's not great with tech. She uses the same Zoom account for everything, and bless her heart, she left the app logged in on our desktop, the one in the den. So on the day of the call, I scheduled a fake meeting with her, told her I'd be out at Home Depot picking up supplies. She nodded, barely listening. She thinks I fix things. I don't. I just like the smell of lumber. Instead, I sat in the next room with my Bluetooth speaker hooked to the computer and screen recording software running like a dream. She logged on. There he was. Mr. M. First name, Charles. Full name, Charles Martin Hollis. Noted real estate lawyer, apparently. Divorced. Lives alone in a downtown condo and likes to talk about how yoga saved his back. The call was short but telling. They were reviewing a lease agreement, not hers. His. She was helping him settle into a new office space. Casual talk about how they could start fresh there. And then, here's the kicker, she said. I still haven't told David. But once the lease is finalized, I will. It'll be easier if we're both settled. Settle this. I copied the video, labeled it tax receipts, and saved it to a hidden folder. Then I Googled Charles Hollis. Found his business profile, his Facebook, his LinkedIn. And guess what? In his interests section, he listed running, travel, architecture, and documentaries. Documentaries. Movie tickets. Calendar entries. Locked in Tuesdays. The entire thing made sense now. But I didn't feel rage. I felt clarity. I had all the proof I needed, and none of it came from breaking into her phone or following a lipstick trail. It came from the place where most modern affairs live and die. Bad digital hygiene and overconfidence. So I waited until that Friday. Same as always, we had dinner. She was checking her phone while pretending to care about the roasted vegetables I overcooked. I asked her what she had planned next week. She said, nothing major. No eye contact. Just flipping her napkin like it owed her money. I smiled. Then I opened the laptop and slid it across the table. Hey Liz, before I forget, can you double-check this Zoom recording? I think it might be work-related. Her hand froze mid-reach. She looked at the screen. Watched herself. Heard herself. Watched him. No one said a word for the full 2 minutes I let it play. Then I closed the laptop. Now, I said, pushing my chair back. You want to tell me what December 9th is? Or should I call Charles and ask him myself? She didn't answer. Didn't cry. Didn't deny. She just sat there. Caught not in a trap, but in a truth of her own making. And me? I was done waiting. I didn't yell. I know that's what people want in these stories. The grand blow-up, the shouting match, the dramatic slamming of doors. But that's not how it happened. Because when you've already mourned a relationship while still living in it, there's not much left to explode. Only ashes to blow around. It was the morning after the Zoom video. Elizabeth hadn't said a word all night. She sat at the kitchen island staring at a slice of dry toast like it owed her an apology. Me? I made coffee. Put on a fresh shirt. Even ironed it. Because if you're going to confront your wife about infidelity, you may as well look like the guy who's still got control over his sleeves. She finally broke the silence with the kind of phrase that makes people want to set furniture on fire. I didn't mean for it to happen. I turned slowly, mug in hand. You didn't mean for what, Elizabeth? For your mouth to form words to a man named Charles about starting a new life. She flinched. Good. I needed her to feel it. Not because I'm cruel, but because I've been eating my emotions with a fork and knife for the past 6 months while she was out there sharing cappuccinos and long walks. It was supposed to be temporary, she added. I didn't know it would become this. I almost laughed. This. What a beautifully vague word to describe torching 11 years of marriage. This. Like she found a stray cat, brought it inside, and accidentally adopted it. I sat down across from her. Calm, measured. The way a surgeon might sit before a delicate operation. Okay, so let's cut the act. You've been seeing Charles for how long? She didn't answer. You've got a Google Calendar. You've met his kids. You're helping him find office space. He calls you his piece, and you told him, and I quote, David doesn't suspect a thing. So I'll ask again. How long? She stared at the floor. 8 months. 8 months, I repeated. You've basically been married to him longer than you've been married to me this year. It wasn't like that at first. It never is. She finally looked up, and for the first time in a long time, she looked like someone I used to know. Not because she was remorseful. I'm not sure she even had that in her anymore. But because she was afraid. Not of me, but of consequences. Elizabeth doesn't fear hurting people. She fears being judged. What do you want me to say, David? I leaned back. Oh, I don't know. Maybe the truth? Maybe an answer that doesn't sound like it was drafted by a divorce lawyer with a PR minor. I didn't plan it, she repeated. We met at that sustainability lecture. The one I asked you to go to, and you passed. Oh, so it's my fault now. The classic pivot. I didn't attend a 7 p.m. lecture on urban water recycling, so obviously, she had to crawl into bed with Charles. Let me guess, I said. He listened. He asked about your passions. He remembered your middle name. Her eyes narrowed. Don't be a jerk. Don't be a liar. I shot back. You've been building a new life while acting like this one still mattered. You didn't want a marriage. You wanted coverage until you knew the other deal would close. That's not fair. I slammed my hand on the table, not loud, but sharp enough to make her blink. Fair? You want to talk fair? You let me plan a vacation with you 3 weeks ago. You let me put a deposit down on the beach house. You let me talk about trying for a baby, Elizabeth. Silence. She hadn't expected that one to come up. You knew. I said, quieter now. You knew we were never going to have that baby. You just wanted to keep the optics clean until you could walk out looking graceful. And there it was. The shame. Flickering in her expression like a candle in a drafty room. Not because she regretted what she did, but because she hated being seen for who she really was. Elizabeth was the kind of person who rehearsed her emotions in the mirror before delivering them. And right now, the script was falling apart. I didn't want to hurt you, she whispered. Well, I said, standing up and taking my mug to the sink. Congrats. You failed. The next 2 days were logistical. Quiet. Distant. We both knew we were standing in the wreckage of something that used to mean everything and now meant nothing, at least to her. She slept in the guest room. I stayed in ours. It wasn't awkward. It was peaceful, like two strangers waiting for separate flights in the same terminal. Every glance felt like a delay. Then came Saturday. She came into the kitchen holding her phone. Charles wants to talk. He said if you're willing, he's open to a conversation. That got a laugh out of me. What does he think this is? Couples therapy for 3. He wants to apologize. Too late. She nodded. So what happens now? I'm filing, I said. Monday. She didn't react. I think part of her hoped I'd drag it out. That I'd cling to the fantasy she kept selling. That this was just a rough patch. But I wasn't buying anymore. I'll move into a rental, she said. No. You'll stay here. I'll go. She blinked. Why? Because I already packed. It was true. My bags were in the garage, trunk loaded, ready to go. I'd rented a condo downtown. Month to month. No strings. You're just leaving? She asked. No, Elizabeth. I left the moment I knew you stopped showing up. She didn't cry. Not even a flinch. That's the part that broke me a little. Not the betrayal. Not the deceit. But the sheer emptiness of it all. Like we'd never even been anything worth missing. I never stopped loving you, she said. And yet, here we are. And then I walked past her. Out the door. Down the steps of a house I paid for. Past the hydrangeas she never watered. And into a life that, for the first time in years, felt like it might actually belong to me again. No melodrama. No screaming. Just a quiet exit from a story that stopped being ours a long time ago. Revenge isn't always fire and brimstone. Sometimes it's slow. Surgical. The kind that walks in wearing a polite smile and leaves the room with the oxygen. I didn't want to scream or humiliate or leave scorched earth behind me. I wanted Elizabeth to remember, every single day, that she played the wrong man. I didn't need a court or a fight. I just needed patience, planning, and one very public moment. It started with paperwork. Monday morning, I was at the attorney's office the minute their doors opened. I'd done my research. This wasn't going to be some drawn-out courtroom circus where we hashed out who got the couch. No, I wanted fast, clean, final. So I filed for divorce citing irreconcilable differences and requested an uncontested hearing. But what made this different? I included a document most people overlook, a waiver of asset protection. See, Elizabeth never changed the deed on the house. Still under my name, fully. Paid off last year. A fact I celebrated with her over cheap champagne, not realizing she was probably texting Charles under the table. Her new boyfriend, despite being a lawyer, didn't think to tell her to fix that little oversight. I also took back the car. Technically, it was a lease in my name. The monthly payments auto-deducted from my account, not hers. She used it. She called it hers. It wasn't. The next call I made was to the leasing company. Then I canceled the shared credit cards. Changed the login on the utilities. Shut down the joint streaming accounts. Not out of spite. Out of principle. If you're going to burn the marriage down, you don't get to keep watching Netflix on my dime. She texted that afternoon. Did you change the Hulu password? I replied, yes. And the locks? No response. Good. That Thursday, I made my real move. You see, Elizabeth wasn't just cheating. She was networking. Her new boyfriend Charles ran a small boutique law firm with a reputation for being aggressively charming. Think LinkedIn meets country club vibes. And every year, like clockwork, they threw a mid-December philanthropy gala. Clients, investors, partners, the whole nine. It wasn't just a party, it was a resume builder. I knew she'd be there. Charles had posted a teaser photo on his firm's Instagram. A photo Elizabeth had taken. I recognized the tablecloths. I was invited too, ironically. We'd attended as a couple the previous year when she was still pretending we were solid. So I knew how to get in. But instead of crashing it, I did something worse. I RSVP'd. Solo. I rented a suite from a high-end place 2 blocks from my new place. Nothing too flashy, just enough polish to look like someone you should know but can't quite place. The event was at the Wexford Hotel downtown. Valet parking, string quartet in the lobby, waiters with permanent smirks. I walked in, drink ticket in my pocket, a story on my face. The first person who spotted me was Allison, Charles's assistant. I remembered her, painfully polite, overly enthusiastic. She blinked like she saw a ghost. David. Oh wow. We didn't know you were coming this year. I smiled. Charles invited me. Guess he forgot to mention it. Technically true. The email came from his office's mailing list, and I RSVP'd under a different email alias. It helps when you work in finance, and your LinkedIn still looks like you're married to the woman currently dating your host. She laughed nervously. Well, welcome. I nodded, grabbed a glass of whatever wine they were handing out, and moved through the crowd like a man with a purpose. I kept it light. No staring, no brooding stares. Just polite hellos, short conversations, like I belonged. And then I saw her. Elizabeth, wearing a dark green dress I didn't recognize. Laughing at something Charles said. Her hand resting on his shoulder like she was already his wife. She looked rehearsed, like she'd practiced this whole night in front of a mirror. And I was about to ruin her entire script. I didn't go to her first. I waited, circulated, built tension, let her spot me from across the room, just long enough for her smile to stutter. Her eyes widened. Charles turned, confused. And then I made my move. Not toward them, toward the microphone. There's a moment every gala has where the crowd lulls just before the announcements. I found the organizer, a nervous guy named Peter I'd met last year. I told him I had a quick announcement to make, that I'd made a donation in my wife's name. She loved these things, I said. Always wanted to feel like she was giving back. I winked. He bought it. 2 minutes later, I was on the mic. The room quieted. I started slow. Good evening, everyone. My name's David Whitley. Some of you know me. Some of you probably don't. That's okay. I'm not important tonight. But I wanted to say a few quick words. I paused, scanned the room. Found her. She was frozen. Charles had his arm halfway around her, unsure what was happening. I used to attend this event with my wife. Beautiful woman. Sharp, funny, brilliant. She made friends quickly, spoke French badly, and always cried at dog commercials. Polite laughter. Still with me. I won't take up much of your time. I just wanted to thank the organizers. Because if not for this event last year, I never would have realized that my marriage was over. Silence. Not even a fork moved. See, last year, while I was talking to one of Charles's junior partners about a real estate deal, my wife was out on the terrace texting someone who would later be very helpful in helping her forget I existed. And I have to thank her for that. Because it taught me everything I needed to know. Elizabeth's mouth opened slightly. She was too far away to speak, but not far enough to hide. So tonight, I continued, I'm making a donation. Not to the firm, not to the cause, but to a shelter downtown. One that helps people restart their lives when they've been, let's say, unexpectedly removed from their homes. A few confused chuckles. One guy clapped awkwardly. And I'm doing it in the name of Elizabeth Whitley. Because nothing says fresh start like putting your name on something that actually helps people. And then I stepped down, walked past Charles, whose face was somewhere between confused and legally concerned. Walked past Elizabeth, who said, David, what the hell are you doing? I didn't stop walking, just leaned in close enough for her to hear me whisper. This is me, telling the truth. You should try it sometime. Then I left. The The fallout? Immediate. That night, I got a dozen texts. Some shocked, some sympathetic. One from Charles. That was childish. I replied. So was sleeping with a married woman. We all grow up eventually. Elizabeth sent a long message. A mix of fury and shame. Said I humiliated her. I sent back. No, Liz. You did that to yourself. I just bought a microphone. That was the last time we spoke. I heard through mutual friends that her relationship with Charles didn't survive the public fallout. Apparently, the firm didn't love the PR. Turns out people who handle million-dollar contracts prefer not to be publicly associated with personal train wrecks. And me? I went back to my life. Quietly. With dignity. No fire, no ashes. Just freedom. I thought I was done. After the gala, after the microphone, after I dismantled Elizabeth's carefully curated public face in front of Charles and every pretentious donor in a suit worth more than my car, I thought that was it. Curtains. No encore. But people like Elizabeth, people who trade on perception, who live for appearances, they don't go quietly. They wait for the smoke to clear and then come back, all soft-voiced and wide-eyed, thinking maybe if they sound sad enough, the damage will rewind itself. She waited 3 weeks. 3 weeks of silence. No calls. No texts. Nothing but an official email from her attorney confirming she'd signed the divorce papers and that everything was moving forward. It was clean, efficient, impersonal, exactly how I wanted it. And then she called. I didn't answer, so she left a voicemail. David, I think we should talk. Not to argue. Just talk. I owe you that. Please. Just once. I deleted it. Then she emailed. You don't have to respond. I just want to meet in person, one time. You can pick the place. I'll say what I need to say, and then I'll leave. No drama. Just closure. I stared at it for a while. Closure. That word gets thrown around a lot like it's a Hallmark product. Truth is, closure isn't something anyone gives you. You build it. Nail by nail, beam by beam. And most people asking for closure really just want to see if they still have access. But curiosity's a hell of a drug. So I picked a place. Not a coffee shop. Not a park bench. Not some quiet neutral spot that whispered peace offering. I chose an old diner we used to visit back when we were too broke for anything fancier. Same cracked booths. Same faded menus. Same grease smell in the air. I got there early, sat in the back corner booth, and waited. She walked in exactly 5 minutes late. Not a hair out of place. Makeup subtle but strategic. She looked like she'd practiced in the mirror for this. I didn't stand up. Just watched her slide in across from me like we were two strangers meeting for a Craigslist sale. Thanks for agreeing, she said. I nodded. No smile. Just a stare. She glanced down, adjusted her purse. How have you been? We're not doing small talk, Elizabeth. Right. She swallowed. Okay. Silence. She folded her hands on the table like a job interview. I wanted to say I'm sorry. For which part? I asked. The affair? The lies? The months of gaslighting? Or the part where you smiled in my face while checking his calendar? She blinked. All of it. I waited. I know I don't deserve anything from you, she continued. But I needed to say it. I hurt you. Deeply. And I hate that. I leaned in, elbows on the table. No, Elizabeth. You hate that you got caught. You hate that your fantasy didn't pan out. You hate that you don't control the narrative anymore. That's what this is about. That's not fair, isn't it? I was unhappy, David. You were bored. She didn't argue. Just looked away, blinking faster now. I gave you everything, I said. Time. Support. Loyalty. I showed up. Every day. Even when you didn't. And you repaid me by using our marriage like a backup generator. She exhaled hard. You always made it sound so simple. Like being loyal was enough. It was. Until you decided it wasn't. Another pause. I didn't think I'd fall for someone else, she said. You didn't fall. You climbed. She flinched. That one landed. Do you love him? I asked. No, she said too quickly. Not anymore. That ended. So this is what? A retrospective. She looked down at her hands. I miss us. There it was. The line. The old emotional rope tossed out to see if I'd still grab it. I didn't. I don't, I said. Her mouth opened slightly, as if trying to shape a reply before she had won. Elizabeth, I said, keeping my voice level. You didn't just break vows. You broke trust. You broke identity. I stopped recognizing myself in the mirror because I spent so long trying to be what you needed, while you were off being whatever Charles wanted. She looked wounded, like she hadn't expected this version of me. But I wasn't finished. You taught me something, though, I said. You taught me how little I valued my own peace. I kept trying to fix something you'd already left. So thank you. She sat back, arms crossed now. Defensive. I didn't expect this to turn into a trial. Then you haven't been paying attention. We sat in silence again. The waitress came by, but I waved her off. Elizabeth just stared at the menu like it was in another language. I'm not here to win you back, she said eventually. Good. Because that door's welded shut. I needed to face you. You needed to make yourself feel better. Maybe. I don't know. She was unraveling now. I think part of me hoped we could still talk. Not as thus, but as people. I looked at her, really looked. And for a second, I saw the version of her from 10 years ago, the one with messy hair and half-burned pancakes on a Sunday morning. The one who used to trace circles on my hand during movies. That version didn't exist anymore. Maybe she never really did. We are talking, I said. And after this, we're done. She nodded, slowly. Okay. We stood at the same time. No hug. No dramatic moment. Just a quiet understanding. At the door, she turned back. Are you seeing anyone? I smiled. I'm seeing myself, Elizabeth. For the first time in years. She nodded, blinking fast again. But I turned and walked out. I didn't look back. You don't just walk away from something like that. You don't untangle over a couple months, sign some paperwork, and suddenly become a guy who talks about his journey over brunch. No. Divorce. Real divorce. The kind where love rots into betrayal. It clings to your bones. You carry it. You just learn how to wear it better. After that final conversation with Elizabeth, I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel free or healed or any of the inspirational nonsense people post about online. I felt hollow, like someone hit the mute button on my entire life. She didn't call again after the diner. Didn't text. The silence was mutual, and for once, it felt appropriate. Like two bankrupt businesses closing up shop and pretending the signs in the window were always part of the plan. What surprised me was how fast the paperwork came through. No fighting. No revisions. She didn't contest anything. I think, deep down, she wanted to be punished. Not by me, necessarily, but by something. Guilt looks for structure, for consequences. And I gave her exactly that. By the end of January, I was officially single again. You learn a lot about yourself when no one's watching. I learned I talk to myself more than I thought. I learned I sleep better alone, which felt like a betrayal in itself. I learned that when you're not walking on eggshells in your own home, even silence feels like music. The condo I rented started to feel like mine. Slowly. A lamp here. A rug there. I didn't go full divorced guy trying too hard, with lava lamps and leather recliners. I just made it livable. Honest. A place where the furniture didn't feel like it was pretending. I went back to the gym. Not because of some cliché revenge body fantasy. Just because my doctor had mentioned my blood pressure was creeping up and I figured, why not? It gave me something to do besides refresh my inbox or rewatch documentaries I pretended to enjoy when I was married. I saw friends again. Real ones, not the couples we used to trade dinners with. You'd be surprised how many people come out of the woodwork when they hear your marriage tanked. Most of them don't ask out of kindness. They want the gossip. I gave them nothing. Let them wonder. I even went on a couple dates. And they were fine. Nothing clicked. But that wasn't the point. The point was learning how to talk again. How to sit across from someone without calculating the emotional landmines. How to listen without trying to solve. How to laugh, really laugh, without hearing it echoed back in someone's fake smile. One of the dates was a woman named Marlene. She worked in nonprofit consulting, had a quick wit, and didn't once ask about my ex. I like that. We had dinner, saw a terrible movie, and split a cheesecake at a diner where the waitress flirted with everyone regardless of gender or age. It felt normal. Not fireworks, but calm. And calm, it turned out, was what I'd been missing. I heard through a mutual acquaintance, someone from Elizabeth's old firm, that Charles had moved offices. Apparently, after the Gala incident, some of his clients decided they preferred a lawyer who didn't date his married clients. The word unethical got tossed around a lot, and in their world, perception is reality. Elizabeth, from what I heard, had quit her job a few weeks later, moved into a smaller place, stopped showing up at the old yoga studio. Now, I'm not petty. Okay, I'm a little petty, but I didn't celebrate her downfall. I didn't raise a glass every time someone told me she was having a hard time. Because the truth is, I don't care if she's struggling. I care that I'm not. That's the real win. It wasn't revenge. It was release. The slow, steady kind. The kind that creeps in when you wake up and realize you haven't thought about them in 2 days. When you realize you're humming to yourself in the car. When you open the fridge and nothing inside reminds you of a life you used to hate, but kept up out of habit. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I ran into her. Grocery store. I was in the frozen aisle debating between 2 kinds of breakfast burritos. She turned the corner wearing oversized sunglasses indoors like she was shielding her soul. She stopped mid-step. I didn't. I kept walking. She said my name softly, like it still belonged to her. David. I turned, looked her in the eye. She looked older, not aged, just worn, like someone who's been trying to sleep off a decision for months and never quite gets there. Hey, I said. She smiled. Small. You look good. So do you? I lied. I've been meaning to reach out. Don't. She blinked. I just thought maybe. I meant what I said at the diner. I cut in. That was the last conversation. This isn't a new chapter, Elizabeth. It's a closed book. She nodded slowly. Okay. I understand. Good, I said. Take care. And then I walked away. Not because I was trying to prove a point. Not because it felt dramatic. But because I really had nothing left to say. I paid for my burritos and left. Drove home. Ate one standing at the kitchen counter while reading the news. Didn't tell anyone. Didn't relive it in my head for hours. Just moved on. That's how I knew I was finally free. People always ask if I'd do anything differently. And you know what? No, I wouldn't. Not because it was easy. It wasn't. But because I showed up. I gave everything. I stood there while the ship sank, trying to patch holes in a boat she was drilling from the other side. I was honest. I was loyal. I stayed longer than I should have. I got burned. And then I walked out with my head up. That's something. That's enough. So, if you're reading this thinking about the signs, the subtle ones, the quiet erosion of something you once called love, don't ignore them. Don't romanticize the pain. Don't wait for your dignity to be the last thing left in the room. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't ruining their life. It's reclaiming yours. The end. Subscribe to the channel